Hi guys, hope wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you've had a sensational day. You know, we all know and have heard the importance of our health and fitness and it has on our physical well-being. And we also know the euphoric feeling following a workout, a brisk walk, a jog or a run. You know, the endorphins that heighten our overall feeling of well-being and it puts us into a beautiful heightened state. So the question is, if we know the importance of living a healthy lifestyle and we know that feeling that exercising gives us, then why? Do our minds make up excuses and stop us from achieving it? Well, today we're speaking with Cherie Rivas, Women's Health and Fitness Coach, on this very topic, and she's going to help us out. Now, Cherie will be helping us understand sort of how we can sort of work through these issues, I guess, and sharing her top tips, how we can be stronger than our excuses. How are you doing, Cherie?
I'm fabulous. Thank you, Rach.
Now,
wonderful to be here.
I love chatting with you. Now, tell us, for everybody that's watching, a little bit about your backstory and what inspired you to become a women's health and fitness coach, because as we were discussing before, this is really relevant for many people. So please just give us a little bit of an overview how you become to be a health and fitness coach.
So my journey of becoming a women's health and fitness coach basically comes from my own experiences and my own challenges that I've always had as, a young child growing up, and certainly through my early adulthood, always struggling with my weight and my, my body image, self-confidence, sense of self-worth. And, I went through the big weight loss roller coaster. I must have done that roller coaster 3 or 4 times. I've spent the majority of my life weighing over 100 kilos. I think the maximum I ever reached was around about 115 kilos. So I've done, the extreme weight gain, and then I've done the extreme dieting and the extreme and excessive, exercising to lose the weight. So I've lost, between 30 and 40 kilos about 3 or 4 times in my life in the past. And I just really know how not only does that impact on your body physically, but what it does to your spirit emotionally. And I had a particularly rock bottom time in my life when I was about 40, and I decided then and there that I can't sustain this for the rest of my life. So I had my little boy, and he became my reason for living the best life that I possibly could. And obviously that started with getting my health and fitness on track sustainably and for the long term. And I needed to make that conscious decision. Okay, from this point forward, we're not going to do the roller coaster weight gain, weight loss anymore. We are going to put in place the systems and the processes necessary to maintain good health for the rest of my life. The good eating patterns, the healthy and, constructive and kind ways of exercising my body to maintain good health for the rest of my life. And through that process to support my own progress, I became a qualified personal trainer, and I also became certified in yoga instruction, and I've also done formal studies in nutritional medicine. And that really complemented the double major in psychology that I got many, 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 many years ago. And so I've sort of packaged all that together. And obviously with my own life experiences, I've now managed to put that all together. And now I take, great joy and, I really find it a blessing to be able to now put that all together and help other women who have also experienced the weight loss roller coaster and who have really reached a point in their lives where they're ready to make the change, to jump off that roller coaster and really, put the systems and processes in place to manage good health for the rest of their life.
And we published an article titled "Being Stronger Than Your Excuses: Simple Secrets to Support Your Health and Fitness." Now, I'm guessing a lot of this comes from your personal experiences as well. been through that.
Absolutely.
So someone you have to,
Like, there's no denying it. I know all the excuses. I have made all of those excuses myself. So, you know, I'll be the first person to put my hand up and say, you know, hey, I've been there. You know, my clients can't put anything over me because I'm always that one step ahead of them. When I hear their excuses, they don't even realize they're making excuses because it's just become the natural response. And so I pull them up straight away, and you know, we have a bit of a conversation about those excuses that they're making. But yeah, definitely the experience. I can pick an excuse a mile off, Rach.
yeah, I bet you can. And the was sort of watching, you have to read the article because it's really descriptive, and it really gives us really great insight into how our minds actually work, and stop us from achieving what is rightfully sort of great for our bodies, and that is just looking after our health and well-being. And you and you break it down into two main parts. You say, no, we can either do one or two things. We can live each day making a purposeful progress towards the reality that we desire, or we can continue to make excuses on why we can't and we shouldn't. So, you know, in the article, you mentioned our excuses are called comfort distortions. As I said, I read what a comfort distortion. I went, oh, what's that? Like, I was just like, I've got to understand, what is a comfort distortion?
It's exactly that. It's a story that we make up in our own minds to create that level of comfort. Yeah. It gets us off the hook, but it does it in such a nice, warm and comforting way that it allows us to get off the hook without that sense of guilt. So, you know, we avoid the sense of guilt. We're getting ourselves off the hook, but we're doing it in a way that's really comforting because we've rationalized in our own mind that, oh yeah, this excuse is actually really valid, and you know, we don't have to, you know, eat well, or we don't have to exercise because we're feeling really nice and comfortable in this little zone and excuse that we've created for ourselves.
You know, you mentioned effectively they are acts of self-sabotage because they distract us from actually achieving the goals we want to achieve.
Of course they are.
They shift the focus. This is really, I found really fascinating. You mentioned they shift the focus from our issues relating to our internal sense of self towards an external issue beyond ourselves. So what the article explains, for example, it's the reason I can't exercise today because it's too cold outside for jogging, or I don't have time, or what have you. So instead of doing something that's right for us, we find an external excuse as a sense of self-sabotage. Would that be the best way to describe it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you know, if we're really, really digging deep, you know, like I'm talking to the depths of somebody's avoidance issues, common themes that will come up are issues around somebody's sense of self-worth, somebody's level of fear of making changes, you know, the fear of the unknown. So rather than really focusing on those internal issues, you know, we focus outwards. You know, it's we don't have time because of work, or we can't do it because we can't afford exercise equipment. You know, it's money, it's time, it's all of these other things that are going on in our life that take our focus and attention. And that way we don't have to deal with the issues of self-worth or the fears and all of those sorts of things. So we rarely focus on what's really going on here at a soul level, and we tend to blame all of these things out here in you know, in the world that distract us.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, how it's sort of, I guess generally when we're trying to change a life pattern, it takes is it around about 4 to 6 weeks to start and to get into a new habit. But once you get into it, you actually almost have that voice in your mind, and it sort of makes you feel bad that if you don't. So it's just about shifting from where you are and getting through that 4 to 6 week period to a point where it does become part of your daily and weekly sort of routine and ritual. Have you found that?
Absolutely. But certainly I would never put like any sort of time limit on it. Yep. You know, there are theories that say, oh, you know, if you do something 21 times, it becomes a habit. Well, I'd probably dispute that because we're all individuals. You know, each and every one of us have different life circumstances, and certain habits have been reinforced and really deeply ingrained in us to different extents and to different levels. So, you know, is it a new habit, or is it a habit that you have literally had for your entire life? And I know for me, you know, I've been living you know, a wonderfully happy and healthy life now for 6 years. You know, it's been just over 6 years that I made that decision to shift. But every day I still make that conscious effort that, okay, today I am eating well. Today I am going to the gym and I'm doing this particular workout at the gym, you know, and that's 6 years later.
Yeah.
It's still a conscious decision. So, you know, it really comes back to an individual. But the point is, when you're developing a new habit, you have to do something consistently, like you've said.
And it's just finding a way in that initial stage to negotiate and bargain with yourself in your own head.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and if you need to actually set yourself those short-term goals, those little micro goals, you know, that's a really good way of starting to develop the positive habits.
And moving away from that justification of Well, let's get stuck into these three key questions. So question number one, you know, we all know how important our health and fitness is and why we should be eating and exercising on a regular basis. So why is it so common then for people to make excuses to avoid it all the time?
Well, firstly, I would just like to reinforce that making excuses is a completely natural. In fact, I would also go as far as to say that it is part of our innate, one of those primal, primitive kind of survival mechanisms. Okay, so it's completely natural, completely normal, and ultimately it comes down to self-preservation. Because, you know, when you think about from an evolutionary perspective, we're all built, you know, we've got this survival instinct. And when it comes to, you know, fear, pain, we naturally want to avoid it because we have this natural survival instinct. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, when it comes down to making some of these excuses based on our lifestyle, it comes down to that really primitive survival instinct. Because when we think of exercising, our minds are typically drawn to, oh, that huffy puffy feeling, the horrible sweating, the aching muscles that happen the day after and 2 days after.
Yeah.
So our minds and our survival instincts are kind of like, will naturally want to avoid all of those negative things.
Yeah.
Okay, because we've got this inbuilt survival mechanism and this inbuilt, you know, of course we want to avoid pain. We want to avoid all of that aching, hurting muscles. We want to avoid the burning lungs when we go for a jog. We want to avoid the feelings of hunger when we deprive ourselves. And typically that's what diets are traditionally, is they deprive us of those things we enjoy. So from a survival instinct, making excuses is completely normal and it's completely natural. So that's basically why we do it.
Is it like a self-protective mechanism? And I guess
absolutely
feeling a way to
So, I mean, like we've also mentioned, it's one of those comfort distortions. I mean, not only are we talking survival instinct here and avoiding the pain and all of those sorts of things, it comes back to those comfort distortions as well, because, you know, we may not like to imagine life with, you know, without all of those foods that we've convinced ourselves that we love so much, you know, the chocolate cake and the bottle of wine every night and all of those sorts of things. We can't even begin to imagine life without that. So that's, you know, another one of those comfort distortions that we create. You know, we need our bottle of wine for a certain reason, or those sorts of things. So making excuses is quite complex, but just as they can be established, they can be
undone,
re-established.
Yes, yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well, let's get stuck into question number 2. So knowing why we make excuses for ourselves is one thing, but how do we stop ourselves from doing it?
Quite simply, the first point is recognizing it.
Yep.
And, you know, if we actually start to take notice of some of our language and some of our verbal responses to things, and we start to identify some of those patterns, we will actually begin to find that, oh, okay, I don't have time. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. Or I don't have money for this. I don't have money for that. Or, oh no, I'm too busy at the moment. Work's got me under the pump, or whatever it is. If we actually listen to ourselves and listen to the language that we're using, we can quite often identify, oh, okay, these responses have almost become an automatic response.
Yeah, yeah.
Without even thinking about it. And it's like, if I could sort of put it, if I could try to explain it in terms of physical habits. Have you ever noticed that you'll brush your teeth in the exact same way, or you'll do your makeup removal in the exact same way? We don't even think about how we brush our teeth. We just do it. We reverse out of the driveway without even thinking about it. We just do it. And those physical movement patterns have become forged like superhighways from our brain right through our body. And similarly, habits will become established in our brain.
Yep.
So when we're constantly having those same thought patterns over and over again, they become habits. So without even thinking about it, we will respond, I don't have time. We don't actually think about, oh, do I have time or don't I have time? That thought and that response has become instant without even thinking about it. So the thought has become the habit.
Is it a matter of then like identifying the fact that like we may even just do that, go into that instant sort of defensive, no, I can't, I don't have time, or, and then understanding and stopping yourself there, and then it's a matter of then
exactly
that pattern.
Absolutely. So if we can listen to our words and our language and actually recognize, oh yeah, I use that excuse all the time. And when you've recognized it, then you can actually begin to break it down. And it's like, oh, do I really have time or do I not have time? You know, where can I save time by focusing my attention in a more productive way? That kind of thing. So that's the starting point, is recognizing it and then really figuring out, is this actually reality? Or is it just that nice comfort place, that nice little, you know, comfort distortion that my mind has created in order to get me off the hook so that I don't need to deal with some of these deeper issues?
The very thought that your body at some point has already identified that it needs to exercise more, we need to be able to look after ourselves, you know, better and improve our health and wellness overall, is the very idea that there's something like where we are is not where we want to be, and we actually want to be somewhere else. So I think it's a matter of, you know, catching yourself in that moment when you make that excuse, and just having a very real moment with yourself and saying, we don't want to be right here. We actually want to be, and we visualize a better place for our physical well-being, for our mental well-being, and then sort of almost visualizing that fact and sort of putting yourself in the future. Well, I actually want to be there. I don't want to be here. Deep down, I'm really not that happy with myself. And realistically, and asking yourself that hard question, how's it working out for yourself at the moment, Rach? Obviously not that good. So it's hard. All of this stuff is hard work. It's very confrontational within ourselves. And I'd be the first person to be able to put my hand up, because I'll always put my work and working on Kittypedia or, you know, everything else before sort of going out and sort of doing any exercise or taking the dogs for a walk or anything like that, you know. And I've come from a place where I used to look after myself a lot, and my body remembers that. And I'm sure everybody's in the same point. We remember a point in time when we used to look after ourselves and be a certain way, and we always see, well, that's the pinnacle, that's the top of the mountain where we actually want to get to. But we're really, for me, the way I see myself, I'm at the bottom of the mountain. But it's just about sort of taking those steps to get you back up on top again, maybe. I don't know. I'm just thinking aloud at the moment.
Yeah, look, definitely, Rach. And I think, you know, when those habits become really ingrained about, oh, you know, it's so hard to get out and exercise, it's too cold, I'd rather be nice and cozy inside, or I don't have time for it. It's because we've also taken on that negative kind of perception about it. You know, it's too hard, my muscles will hurt. I have to do it. I should do it. And it's you know, we tend to use a lot of that negative language. Whereas if we can turn that around and really start to use some positive language to reinforce why it's so important, and actually kind of, rather than sort of saying, oh, I should go out and exercise, change the words and say, I really want to go out and exercise because it makes me feel awesome. And really focus and reinforce all of those positive attributes that we will then enjoy. And, you know, as it is with any aspect, you've got to focus on the positives, and making that mind shift is so critical in terms of reinforcing the new and positive thought processes.
Well, that's a perfect segue into our third question, you know, and why do you suggest the best way to keep the excuses away and stick to a healthier habits instead? So how do we do that? So that's exactly what you just said, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And the most critical thing is that not only do we have to start thinking about the positives and, you know, really focusing on, you know, yes, it's great to visualize that long-term goal, how you want to look and how you want to feel. Having little micro goals in place, you know, those little milestones, is important. Changing our language, thinking more positively, and consistently reinforcing the positive thought patterns. We need all of that, but we also actually need to get out and do something. So we actually need to get out, not just think about going for a run. We actually need to go for a run. We actually, you need to do it. And when you do it, like if you haven't exercised in a while, it's probably going to hurt. And rather than kind of like, oh, I knew it was going to hurt, I'm never going back to the gym again, that's the point where you need to say, well, okay, this is my body actually reminding me why it's so important to exercise. And, you know, keep those positive thoughts.
One of those things and I've got to actually tell myself this now, because I've got to get back into exercising as well. And I've been saying this for a few weeks, but it's that feeling, exactly what you just said. You know that you're going to be sore, but it's almost like you have to tell yourself and enjoy it, and enjoy that physical pain, because you know what you've done is actually is for your health and wellness, for the benefit. So to actually enjoy.
Absolutely. Yes. It's a positive. It's a fabulous reminder that you are alive. You know, this is my body. This is my body saying thank you for finally getting me out and working me in the way that I am supposed to work. And it's fantastic reinforcement also when you're consistently going back to the gym or whatever exercise, you know, you decide to do. After a couple of weeks, you don't even feel that pain anymore. And that is even more reinforcement at how well your body is responding to the exercise, you know. So if you just focus on all of those great things, you know, reestablishing these new habits, and, you know, absolutely throwing those old habits out the window can be really, really easy. It doesn't have to be hard, because being hard is just one of those stories and one of those excuses that we've created in our own mind. Change the story, change your thoughts, and you change your entire reality.
100%. Well, look, you've just been so insightful today and given us so much inspiration. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they find you?
Best way would be best way is actually through Facebook. So Cherie Rivas Women's Health and Wellness on Facebook. I've also got my website, cherierivas.com. And yeah, I would love to touch base with anybody if they would like to, learn how to get their health and well-being back on track.
Oh, you're a superstar. Thank you so much for your time today. As always, I love
So welcome.
And we'll speak again soon, no doubt. Take care.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rach.
Bye.